Welcome to the Nice Catch Podcast. Today, we're here to catch you up on the latest news and analysis. I'm Baden.
And I'm Hank. Today, we're talking about what a hypothetical NFL expansion would look like.
All right. Hank, you get us started off. What are your initial thoughts?
Initial thing I want to say to everyone listening, disclaimer, we don't have confirmation this is happening anytime soon. Commissioner, at least as of when we're recording this will probably release a bit later, but Commissioner hasn't said, guess what, NFL's getting some new teams. But I'm assuming we'll get in the not too distant future. Some people complain it's a lack of talent. I think the bottom starters in the league versus the top backups in the league, there's not much of a difference. Mm-hmm. I mean, the top backups are probably better than the bottom starters in the league. And so I think an expansion, I mean, the more football, the more people that watch it, the more money the NFL makes. It's a good business decision for them.
Mm-hmm.
So I love talking about this hypothesizing? How is it? Hypotheticizing. That's not it. Hypothesizing about...
Hey, this is a football show, not a grammar show. Okay.
True. I'm a grammar guy, though.
Let's get that straight.
So,
that's good.
Yeah. Just, thinking about what this could be like. And so I think first, let's go over what we think the best cities would be. I have a few tiers made based on, one, if these cities don't get an NFL team in the next 20 years, I will be disappointed. Tier 2, these cities make sense. Tier 3, I guess these cities make sense, but I don't really like them. I don't know. Do you have any cities in your mind that you would be disappointed if the NFL doesn't come to this place?
Yeah, so I think my big thing talking about expansion is, and it's hard because there's two sides of it, is where are there places that need a team? Mm-hmm. Where there's a fan base that, or there's an area where it's like you don't really have a home team, So I think we can go ahead and cancel out anything in California. Mm-hmm. I guess not totally, but they have, 3 teams? 4?
Yeah.
Three teams. Florida doesn't need another team. So, looking at when I was looking into this, looking at teams, and if you really look at a map of where the teams are, there's just a big open place other than you got Denver mm-hmm. and kind of Kansas City, but really just in like the mid-U.S., I guess Midwest maybe, mm-hmm. there's really nothing until you get down to Texas. And so I saw some on different places I was looking at, Oklahoma City, mm-hmm. getting a team in Oklahoma. Oklahoma City is like the 14th or 24th most populated city in the U.S., so it's not like you don't have a fan base there. It's not like you won't have any people. So it makes sense to have a team in Oklahoma. I feel bad for St. Louis.
Yes.
So I've seen some people there saying that we need to get a team in St. Louis, or again get a team back in St. Louis, which makes sense. And then the hard thing is when you look at the Midwest, it's like you're not going to put a team in Wyoming, you're not going to put a team in Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, because it's just the area, it just doesn't make sense, mm-hmm. But just I think moving that way, I think probably the ones that I saw were Oklahoma, St. Louis, Portland, huge city, Portland, Oregon, mm-hmm. And then also you already have it's like that's not a football place. You have the Oregon Ducks. I don't know if they're in Portland or not. Probably not. But
semi-close.
Yeah, but there's a market there. It's obviously there's a lot of wow. Speaking of grammar, a lot of football fans there, and so getting a city up there, really populated place, as long as yeah,
getting a team up there,
Same could be thing. Good. Most of the places that I had written down were kind of like ideas for foreign expansion. Mm-hmm. Yeah, those 3 cities, Portland, St. Louis, and Oklahoma City, were some ideas I had for some thoughts I had for in the States. Also Austin, mm-hmm. but I don't know if Texas needs another team. But that's another place where there'd be a huge market for it because Texans love their football.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a huge city, so I think we could see something there.
Mm-hmm.
But those are my very brief. That's what I think. Hank, what do you think?
Yeah. We'll talk about foreign expansion after we talk about.
We'll get there when we get there.
Yeah, about not foreign expansion. My top two, I would be disappointed if the NFL expands and not to these cities. I mean, really be disappointed if the NFL doesn't expand to these cities. One, like you said, St. Louis.
Yeah.
Even look at the St. Louis Battlehawks of the XFL. I think their attendance, I should fact check myself on this. I would be willing to bet their attendance is higher than several NFL teams.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at how heartbreaking the Rams, like, we're not going to leave. We're not going to leave. We love you, St. Louis. And then they leave. Yeah. And, I mean, have to pay a ton of money to the city of St. Louis. I'm sure the fans there would be one of the best fan bases if you bring a team back there. And I'm sure a lot of those people don't like the Rams. I'm sure some of them, still like the Rams, but a lot of them don't. And my second, you touched on both these, or I think you touched on Austin. Mm-hmm. San Antonio, Austin. It's far enough away from Dallas and Houston both. Man, another team in Texas would be, amazing. Great team. Yeah. Austin obviously already has the Longhorns, who are one of college football's favorite teams. I'm not a Texas fan, but you could even use that stadium if you needed to. I'm sure that in the long run they wouldn't want to do that. And then San Antonio, I think would probably work better than Austin just because it's a little farther away, and it's a bigger city, a little bit or a lot.
Yeah.
I think San Antonio is technically a bigger city, but Austin probably has more cities around it. The San Antonio metro area is probably still a little bigger. But, you still have the Alamo Dome in San Antonio. Mm-hmm. You can already host a team there. So both those cities, you can't do both. Just pick one, and that would be one of the most highly attended fan bases, I would think, or highly attended stadiums.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know. Do you have other other tier teams, or do you want me to just keep going down?
We can keep going. I was looking up, and I think the lowest, just what you were saying about the attendance, the St. Louis Battlehawks, I think one of their bigger game attendances, they packed their stadium was 30-something thousand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to say 40,000.
Yeah, like 30.
I would round up, yeah.
It was like 37,000 or something like that. And then, you see some NFL games. Some stadiums average 60,000. Mm-hmm. So, and it depends on who you're playing and stuff. And so, if you're having one game where you have 90,000 people show up and another one where you have, 30, it's really not that far off for an UFL to underleague team.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, just to your point that St. Louis would be a good market. There's fans there that want a football team. Mm-hmm. So, I was just looking that up.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, if you continue with your second tier whenever you want.
Yeah. I'm fact-checking myself on that. Average attendance per game in the NFL. It's funny, you see 2020 and it goes way down.
Yeah.
So yeah, high 60,000 is what's average for overall. I don't know per team. I can fact check myself on that later. Tier 2, these are teams to me that make sense, that I wouldn't be confused if the NFL moves here. I think are good options. One is Chicago. Obviously, you have the Bears. I'm sure there are a lot of people in Chicago that hate the Bears. And the Bears are looking to build their own stadium. Mm-hmm. You can do a SoFi thing with the Chargers and the Rams. Just put another team there. Help fund it by having two teams that move there. Another, Salt Lake City, kind of the Midwest area, like what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You have Utah, you have BYU. So you have a big football audience there. And then, like what you said, California, you have a lot of teams there already, but you have a lot of people there too.
That's
so I
true.
think San Diego is, obviously you had the Chargers there. And then you look at other teams, Sacramento, Oakland, San Jose, any of those big cities in California could easily host another NFL team.
Oh, yeah.
And then technically these are foreign cities, but they're not Europe, which is what a true international expansion would be. I think several of the big cities in Canada would work well. Montreal and Ottawa both are far enough away from NFL teams that they would work, host a fan base very well. And then Winnipeg, it's kind of a big city, seemingly in the middle of nowhere. I don't know my Canada geography very well, but Winnipeg, I think, could host a team. In Mexico City, we've seen the NFL do games there. It's close enough to all the other teams. I think, flying New York to Mexico City or Seattle to Mexico City can't be much farther than flying from New York to LA or Seattle to Miami. I would assume it's closer than Seattle to Miami.
Yeah. Yeah. I had Toronto and Mexico City down as well.
Yeah. My problem with Toronto is that it's right across the border from Buffalo. And so Toronto is pretty much already taken by the Bills.
Okay, yeah.
And so if you want Toronto to have a team, I don't think you can move the Bills from Buffalo, though.
You can't move the Bills from Buffalo.
No.
With that fan base,
yeah,
that would be a disaster. But a Canada team just makes sense.
That was all for Tier 2 for me. Tier 3, these are cities that I could see it happening. I would argue against it, though. One, it's close to me in two ways. Dallas-Fort Worth. You put the Cowboys there, and you could easily host a fan base of people who hate the Cowboys in Dallas. But, you can't have the Dallas Cowboys and the Dallas something else. You could try to do the Fort Worth something, but it's just not as well known a city, in my mind at least. Maybe it is. It just feels a little sacrilegious to put another team in Dallas. Chicago fans would probably say the same thing for Chicago. I just think fundraising-wise for a new stadium, that makes more sense. I could see it happening in Dallas or DFW, that whole area. You have a big enough metro area to put it, I guess Arlington's kind of in the middle. But you can spread them out a little or share the same stadium. That would probably work even better. And Oklahoma City, what you touched on earlier, I don't know why it's in Tier 3 for me. It probably would be better in Tier 2. They're, a big city, definitely a football audience in that area. I just think, maybe this is because of the Mavericks and the Thunder playing in the playoffs. They feel pretty close to each other.
Yeah.
And so I'm guessing that the the most supported NFL team in Oklahoma City would be the Cowboys, just because of proximity. But there are obviously a lot of people there that hate them too.
Yeah.
Columbus, Ohio would host a team well. You have Ohio State there, and you probably have more Ohio State fans than you do for most NFL teams.
Oh yeah, and see that's the thing. I saw if we're talking about Columbia, South Carolina, saw some things about a South Carolina team, which you have the Panthers in North Carolina. So you get South Carolina, and it's like you have Clemson, you have obviously South Carolina. So there's definitely a football audience there.
Yeah.
But it's like, do you think already with the Panthers that you're going to get more South Carolina, whatever, than Clemson fans? I don't know that you need a team there, but that's just something I saw. I think, the Battle of the Carolinas, it could be fun.
True.
But, that's not a big need. It's not a big market when you have the Panthers right there and then, big college teams. I just thought about that with Ohio State,
Yeah, I agree. But, Ohio already has 2 NFL teams, and it's kind of surprising. Sure, they're on kind of opposite ends. You got the Bengals and you got the Browns. Yeah. But I feel like adding another team could kind of oversaturate that market. Maybe not, though. And I think also a big piece of adding an NFL team is that, especially with right now, the TV audience is what brings in probably most of the funds. And so a team in a smaller market Oklahoma City, obviously a very big city. It's not as big as New York or Dallas. But the TV audience is what really brings in the money. So maybe even build a smaller stadium. Smaller as in doesn't host over 60,000 people. But, the TV audience is what brings in the money.
Yeah, save the money there building the actual stadium and like a in-person attendance, and just, as long as you have that TV, that media, that media market.
Well, the NFL will get that.
Yeah, there's no question about that. And a new team has the opportunity to get even more because people they're curious,
Yeah.
Especially if you get cool uniforms.
Oh, yeah.
If we get another Ohio team, please don't make them orange.
True. Good
We
point.
don't need, what, actually, we don't need another orange team in the NFL. I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
Just get creative, guys.
If we had a video podcast and if we were better graphic designers, we would have to make hypothetical uniforms for these teams.
Yes. And also, I'm wearing orange right now. I just want to throw that. While I'm hating on orange, I am in fact wearing orange. So don't be mad at me.
Yeah. It's just a little too much orange in the state of Ohio.
There's a lot of orange in Ohio, Maybe we see some. No, we can't see red and gray. We have Ohio State. I was just thinking about that. But, just in general, I think that could be one of the most fun things about NFL expansion, new uniforms, cool stuff like that. Because, that's always such a fun thing. We're one of the episodes we'll talk about or have talked about just NFL uniforms, our favorites, cool new additions and stuff. Uniforms are just a really cool part of football. I think out of all the sports, you see some of the most just creative and awesome uniforms in football. And I guess
especially college,
especially college. And you have like a helmet and stuff. So there's more stuff you can do than basketball, where you just have shorts, tank top. But so with new uniforms, that's just a whole nother thing to think about. That's just could be so cool. It's just different uniforms. So
yeah, didn't even think about that piece. Love that. And yeah, team names too. Like, we see the NHL moving a team from Arizona to Utah, and there's 8 team names, at least at this point when we're recording, 18 names that they're choosing from. And so you have fans already backing the Utah Yetis. And so, especially for an NHL team. And so
that'd be great.
I don't think you'll have the same thing that you had when the Seahawks joined the NFL, that fans voted on the name. Fans could submit a name, and whichever name got the most votes won.
That is great.
Man, you had at least one fan submit the orangutans. Man, if we had the Seattle orangutans. Wow. But hey, the Seahawks, I think they hit on that name. That's great.
And just don't let the Commanders choose, because just the fact that the Commanders had the option to go Washington Red Wolves.
Well, the copyright for that was the problem. I love the Washington Red Wolves.
I thought that was so cool. I was you can go on and on about the name change and stuff, but they gave some good options and went with what I felt like was the worst one. And I guess I didn't know about copyright and stuff. You have to think about that. But just Washington Red Wolves, it just rolls right off the tongue. I thought that with the colors and stuff.
Yeah.
But I guess that makes sense with copyright and stuff. That's a bummer.
Yeah, definitely a bummer. And that I could see a name change coming for Washington in the future, because generally you can't change an NFL team's name twice within 5 years unless you get a new owner, and they just got a new owner. And so if the fans keep complaining about the name, the Commanders, it's not a bad name. It's just it's not a cool name.
It's not cool. It doesn't roll off the tongue. It doesn't, and you don't have a mascot.
True, I didn't.
You just have a big W on your helmet, and there's nothing wrong with that. Their uniforms look fine, but if you get a cool name, you get a cool mascot, it just adds another. If you're just thinking about the marketing and stuff, a big W on your shirt doesn't look as cool as what you could do with a good logo, a good name. So it just adds a whole nother level to everything.
Yeah, and most teams like that, like the Raiders, that don't really have a cool uniform or cool mascot.
Yeah,
it's because of the history. Washington just really doesn't have that history.
No, yeah. You have the ability to change things around. The Raiders, the Bears, you can't change anything because there's that. The Cowboys. I mean, the Cowboys uniforms are cool and stuff. But like if someone came along, they got a new manager, and he was like, you know what, you couldn't change it.
No,
you can't. All right, there's just way too much behind it. The fan base isn't going to allow it. But yeah, like you said, with the Commanders, you don't have that. And you've already made big changes, so you can continue to just make everything cooler.
Yeah. Coming back from that rabbit hole, I just want to touch on these last two cities. We're talking about Columbus, Ohio. That's where we went down the rabbit trail. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, good rabbit trail. Love that though. Portland, Oregon. What you mentioned that already. And then Albuquerque, New Mexico. Like a kind of a Midwest. Big gap between LA. Well, no, I guess Phoenix is closer, where the Cardinals are, and then Dallas or Houston or even San Antonio. Long drive to get to either of those places. Not a ton of people out there, but a good bit of football fans out there. So Albuquerque could be a cool midpoint to get a new team.
And I will say, not to go back down a rabbit hole, I'll just say
rabbit holes. We love it.
But I will say, a really cool color combination is New Mexico State, where you have like the deep red and the turquoise, like tealish. I know it's in New Mexico. I don't know if it's New Mexico State or some other college, but even their indoor track is like teal and like a crimson. And so if there's the thing with, you probably don't want your college to have the exact same, or the NFL to have the exact same colors and stuff as the other team. But, when New Mexico, you think, colors and, more I think that a teal and red, I think there's a UFL team that's kind of around there.
The Panthers.
The Panthers, yeah. It could be cool to have an NFL team there that kind of echoes the New Mexico State colors or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's University of New Mexico.
University,
UNM.
University of New Mexico.
Yes.
The UNM. Yeah, I just think
sounds
that
like
could be
candy.
Cool. Yeah.
M&Ms and the UNMs.
UNMs.
Yeah, I mean, Albuquerque, I guess you already have the Arizona Diamondbacks, but call them the Albuquerque Rattlesnakes.
Ooh, yeah, that's good.
Yeah, a lot of these teams don't really lend themselves automatically to a mascot. I mean, even the Albuquerque Roadrunners give a nod to Looney Tunes. I mean, Albuquerque Left Turns. I don't think they can pull that one off, but man, I would love that.
What would the mascot be?
Albuquerque Rabbits.
The Albuquerque Rabbits.
Ooh, Albuquerque Bugs Bunny. Love that. I would root for that team. Not more than the Cowboys, but man, I would root for that team.
Oh, yeah. See, I sometimes just want to be like my little brother and just pick my favorite unit. That's when I was a kid, the Bengals, that was my team because they were like tigers and they had cool uniforms. That if we got a cool team out, New Mexico Jackrabbits,
I like that.
New Mexico Diamondbacks, Rattlesnakes, like you said, I would so root for them.
What about the cacti?
The cacti.
Oh, that's not an animate object.
Albuquerque cacti. I mean, inanimate object. I mean,
you already have the Jets.
Yeah, the Jets.
Almost every mascot is a person or an animal, but inanimate objects sometimes work, or just numbers, like the 49ers or the Philadelphia 76ers. Which sure, there's story behind it, but to most people, they're just two numbers.
They're just two numbers, yeah.
But if we're talking about expansions, obviously an expansion team needs a roster. Kind of, a big part of an NFL team is a roster. Yeah. But I was looking into what happened. The last expansion was the Texans. And so if you look at how the Texans were formed, it actually kind of blew my mind because how it worked is that actually it was 31 teams at that point. But at this point, it would be all 32 teams can protect all of their players except 5 from getting drafted to this team. So think about that. It's the bottom 5 players on a roster that are available. Those are who this team has to pick from.
Yeah.
And so generally this would happen like only a few weeks after the Super Bowl, so before free agency and before the draft. We could have thought ahead and recorded this well, I guess we didn't even have a podcast at that time.
At that time.
Maybe just waited
Go
until
back
that
in
point.
time.
But maybe at that point there'd be a real NFL expansion team.
Mm-hmm.
And so imagine you're picking from the bottom 5 players, and if you pick a player from a team, that team then can pick either 1 or 2 more players to protect of those remaining players. Okay. But if you pick 2 players from the same team, they get to keep the rest of their players. And so it just boggles my mind. It's the bottom of the barrel players that are getting picked.
And that's your options.
And so the thing that's nice for expansion teams is that you have a lot of players like that, I guess it's more of a basketball term, but role players. Mm-hmm. And then you can afford to overpay some free agents. And a lot of the players that are left unprotected, some of them are overpaid veterans like Russell Wilson, that they don't mind or they would actually love for you to take their contracts. Yeah. And so they can afford to, take a player like Russell Wilson, maybe not pay him $53 million, but pay him a lot of money, even if he doesn't perform really up to what you're paying him, because you have the cap space.
Yeah, and, because you're not rebuilding, you're just building, and you don't have a fan base that's on your back. You can start from the ground up. You don't have to win the Super Bowl your first year. And then as you get better, you build the fan base. You continue to grow, more cap space, get some good free agents. You're able to take time. Mm-hmm. The I don't want to just say Cowboys because they're not really at that point, but teams that are obviously in a rebuilding stage.
The Panthers.
Yeah, the Panthers.
Not the Giants, but
the Giants.
I think the Giants
aren't in a rebuilding stage, but they should be. You see, there's pressure. You understand that you have to rebuild, but no one wants to see it take 4 or 5 years. Mm-hmm. They want you to do it in 2 seasons and be back. And there's not that pressure if you're a completely new team picking from the bottom of the barrel. You can start from scratch because you don't have that fan base on your back. Mm-hmm. So it's not as stressful when you don't have a great team right out the gate.
It's a good point. Whenever you have low expectations, whenever your new team fans have low expectations, that's why I've thought rooting for a team that everyone has low expectations, like being a Lions fan, would have, some of it would be really hard. Like, wow, we just lost all of our games this season. Mm-hmm. But when they actually do win more than 5 games, you're excited.
Yeah.
Being a Cowboys fan, if you don't make the playoffs, you're disappointed. And so,
because there's a precedent that's been set, you have to reach that again.
Yeah. And I mean, now, if you don't make the NFC Championship, you're upset every year, saying, new owner, new coach, new quarterback. I'm not a fan like that. But the general Cowboys fans, that's why people hate the Cowboys. A lot of it's because of the fan base. So I don't like admitting that sometimes I don't like admitting that I'm part of that fan base. But, living close to Dallas, semi-close to Dallas, just got to root for the teams that are close.
Got to root for the teams that are close. That's completely fair.
And, family too. But, when I got old enough, I picked my own team, picked the Cowboys for those reasons, and that's where I am now. And, it's been a wild ride. But if we're looking at those rules, I guess we'd kind of be assuming what players wouldn't be protected, or I would assume that the Texans wouldn't protect Noah Brown or John Mechie, one of those guys that's their 4th or 5th receiver, guys like that, or Treylon Burks on the Titans.
Yeah.
And those would be guys, the type of player who'd be available that they don't really want to protect 5 wide receivers, even if they are better players. And so
can I paint a picture for you real quick?
Yes.
It's the lights are dim on the opening season game for the for the New Mexico, for the Albuquerque Rattlesnakes. Okay, you're sitting there. They're about to come out of the tunnel. The smoke starts, psh, psh, and you just start to hear this subtle music in the background. Trace McSorley. And Trace McSorley is the new starting quarterback for the Albuquerque Rattlesnake, the Albuquerque Jackrabbits. You have Trace McSorley, just the ticket sales. No,
yeah,
but really, you think about the people that would be those bottom 5, and so I guess you do think about people like Russell Wilson, where you kind of just want to get rid of the contract because they're not going to be there for 5-6 years. So there is that where you got some good veterans, but also like you really are starting from. You could see something like that, a player that, not necessarily him because he's kind of a joke at this point.
Yeah.
But
he was really good in college. Really fun to watch, but
really good.
Not a quality starter, sadly.
Yeah, and so you just it would just be really interesting, and it's cool because players that otherwise wouldn't get a chance could get a chance and could do really well. But sorry, what were you saying? I just felt like I had to.
No.
Somehow I had to add that in.
Good picture to paint. I was just gonna say we can make our own roster, really. At least our own offense. I know in the past we've kind of mostly focused on offense in this podcast, just because media-wise, that's what's easiest to cover. You have the most press on offense, the most stats, and we can go through a few defensive players. I just don't think, at least with my knowledge of the NFL, there's just not an easy way to look at who would be left open on the defensive side. But as we can just start at the top of the depth chart, QB1 for, let's just keep the trend, Albuquerque Rattlesnakes.
Yeah.
I like it. Sure, it was in tier 3 for me, but hey, it's moving up. That's moved up to tier 2 as well.
It's moving up.
So you can think of a veteran that would be available, or just a backup or third string that can start. You wouldn't get a Patrick Mahomes, obviously.
No.
You wouldn't even probably get a top end starter. This would be a low end starter. But you're an expansion team. That's what you get. I mean, the Texans weren't very good their first few years.
No. Some
expansion teams, in the NHL, the Las Vegas Golden Knights, we were recording this after they're already out of the playoffs. So, yay. Go Stars.
Oh, yeah.
But, they won the NHL, I think, 5 years after becoming a new team. So, quick turnaround for them. We haven't seen that recently in the NFL. But, a few guys immediately pop into my mind. Taylor Heineke, who is a third string on the Falcons now, and we've seen do pretty well starting a team.
Yeah.
Guys like Kirk Cousins, I don't know if the Falcons would want to protect him drafting Michael Penix.
Yeah.
We're 2 Falcons quarterbacks already. So one of those guys would not be protected for sure. If a guy like Gardner Minshew is available, you have Aiden O'Connell, who I'm guessing they see succeeding Gardner Minshew at some point. I'm guessing Gardner Minshew starting this year. He seems to be the better player.
Yeah.
But he's a little older. I see Gardner Minshew as the next Ryan Fitzpatrick. Starting for a lot of teams, great personality, probably great locker room presence, can lead a team, but isn't going to bring the team to
the next level. Playoff Super Bowl.
Patrick Mahomes level. So those are the guys that pop into my mind. Or one more. You look at the Cowboys right now having Trey Lance. You got Dak Prescott, obviously, and Cooper Rush, who won 5 of 6 games when he started, and Trey Lance. Trey Lance was third overall pick only a few years ago. And so getting him to start a team, especially if you have a good coach, obviously I don't think you really want to put a player like him in an expansion situation. You'd rather have a veteran. But I think he could be a high upside player.
Yeah, that's my first thought was Trey Lance. That's just, if you look at backups that you think would be left open, he's there. Who was the the Commanders quarterback last year. Was it
Sam Howell.
Sam Howell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Sam Howell, kind of like a Taylor Heineke, just could definitely get your team up and running.
Mm-hmm.
He can, maybe not a long-term solution, but if you're an expansion team, I think Sam Howell, I think that's a good way to start. And if you're the Commanders at this point, I don't know if you're protecting him.
Well, he's actually on the Seahawks now.
Oh, okay.
He got traded for a low round pick.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what the Seahawks are looking at is training him up under Geno Smith and letting him run with your offense.
Mm-hmm.
And I see the Seahawks as a much better situation than Washington for someone like Sam Howell to be in.
Yeah.
Better offensive line, some of the best weapons in the NFL. So I don't have Sam Howell repped as a breakout player like I do George Pickens or Tyjae Spears.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm excited to see what he does the next few years.
Yeah, for sure.
He could probably have, Drew Lock won some games for the Seahawks last year. Sam Howell could do that. Or you're talking about Drew Lock. He could be another guy.
See, yeah. I was just about to say that now that when you brought up the Seahawks. Is that, Drew Lock is a good he's a good number 2 right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so he would be a good option for starting it up. And then I guess that was my 2. Well, my main one that I was thinking of was Sam Howell, because I just think that he showed that he's a good quarterback, and then now, like you're saying, in a better situation, you really don't know what he'll do because the Commanders last year wasn't a good situation for anybody really.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think Drew Lock would be a good person for an expansion team, and I think you just think about starting up, who's going to get your team started. And then as you see other free agents and stuff,
mm-hmm.
you can pick other guys up.
Yeah. And I think, an argument for having an NFL expansion, a lot of people say there isn't enough talent. But look at quarterbacks like this, where either they're quality backups or they have been starters in the past. Another name we didn't mention was Jimmy Garoppolo. Who, I wouldn't say he led his team to the Super Bowl. He helped get his team to the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a veteran now, learned under Tom Brady. He could be another great guy to help lead your new team. But the amount of teams like the Raiders, like the Vikings right now, maybe even like the Giants with Drew Lock and Daniel Jones, that are a quarterback competition or a quality backup, I don't think we would see that much of a drop-off in quarterback play. Because when people complain about talent, the lack of talent, generally it's in quarterback play. Sure, there aren't 50 starting quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's 34, 36 starting quarterbacks in the NFL.
Oh, easily. And that's just, it's even better for the players if you really think about it, just giving them an opportunity. Mm-hmm. And that's the hard thing, and that's what makes it look like there's not enough talent, is say you're the 49ers or the Chiefs or someone with a good quarterback, your backup isn't going to look good because he's not going to touch the field other than preseason, mm-hmm. or a game that doesn't really matter. And you might have an amazing quarterback as your backup, and no one's going to see it because you're not going to put him on the field when you have Patrick Mahomes if he's healthy.
Yeah.
And so I say we don't know. Of course, they're drafted into the NFL, and you can look at college film and stuff and look at preseason. So you in a way you do, but you don't know what players that aren't getting an opportunity now could just really blow up and be exceptional when put in a QB number 1 position.
Yeah.
Especially if they've never had the chance.
Especially you look at Brock Purdy.
Yeah,
last pick in the draft.
Literally, yeah.
And Dak Prescott was in the same situation. He started the season at number 3. Mm-hmm. One of their quarterbacks had a broken leg, and he's now the offensive coordinator of the Eagles. And Tony Romo got hurt in the preseason, and then Dak leads them to an amazing season, along with his best friend Ezekiel Elliott.
Yeah, Tom Brady.
True, that forgot about that guy.
If we're talking about that, we can't skip over the one.
The GOAT, literally.
Yeah, I don't think you can just. I don't think an argument for not expanding can be lack of skill or lack of player talent, because I just don't think there is a lack of player talent, you know?
Definitely. Wide receivers, but once you move past quarterbacks, because there's just more players in other positions, it's going to be harder. I guess if we're moving down, what a fantasy depth chart would look like, running back.
Running back.
And, like the running back position, it's not, okay, no. It's very deep. There's so many running backs who, haven't had a chance that can not lead a team, but can do what you need him to. You look at, the Bears running back committee this past year, you had, I don't remember who their number one was. Well, obviously they had Khalil Herbert. Rashawn Johnson did a great job. And Deontay Foreman, who was on the practice squad for a lot of the season, got me some good fantasy points some weeks. Even guys like Deontay Foreman, who are older, I think, and just don't get a lot of opportunities, can do well on a team. And so there's so many running backs. I think that's an area where you draft some running backs maybe like Ezekiel Elliott, maybe like Deontay Foreman, who can do what you need them to, and then you draft high upside players who can maybe turn into even like a Saquon Barkley or a Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, and there's players that you've maybe never even heard of that, like, for instance, was it the Bengals 2 years ago? I don't know if Joe Mixon got hurt or something, but you had P. Ryan and one other running back sharing snaps.
Is it Trey Williams or Travion Williams?
Maybe. No, I want to.
This past year was Chase Brown.
It was 2 years ago.
Okay.
Because I had no running back and I had P. Ryan as my starter in fantasy. I guess I did get last, so that's not saying much for it. But it was successful. So there's names that you don't even know when they're put in that position, and especially if you get a Deontay Foreman or a Ezekiel Elliott, you have a veteran, you have a 3rd and 2 back, punching in at the goal line back, and then you get a younger guy, and they not mix, they share
carries.
snaps, they split carries, or you use them, when they're supposed to. You're not gonna, 2nd and 10, you're probably not running Ezekiel Elliott on a sweep now, at where he is, but 3rd and 2, you'd probably rather have Ezekiel Elliott than Tony Pollard punching it in. And you saw that last year when Tony Pollard was put in that situation. He didn't have as good a season because he didn't have that Ezekiel Elliott that power back. So yeah, you get an older veteran like Ezekiel Elliott, and then you get a younger guy that they split snaps. I think that would be great. But yeah, P. Ryan is thinking about running backs. He's on the Chiefs now. Or
the Chiefs have a P. Ryan. I don't think it's the same P. Ryan.
Same P. Ryan?
I think they have a Michael P. Ryan, not Samaje.
Okay.
Samaje P. Ryan was on the Broncos. I feel like he moved on, but I don't remember where.
Okay. Yeah, but when he had his chance in Cincinnati, I think he played really well. So yeah, just smaller names like that where it's not someone that you're necessarily going to protect, but it's not like I guess we have to take this guy. That's a good pick.
Yeah, Samaje P. Ryan is on the Cleveland Browns, and that's another backfield that obviously Nick Chubb's coming off a devastating injury, but you have P. Ryan, Deontay Foreman is on the Browns.
Hey, see, they're already together. All right, it's meant to be. And so, down in New Mexico.
Yep, and so these players, we've listed a few specific names. There aren't a lot of specific names that you look at and think, they're guys that need to be drafted to an expansion team. I think a lot of those players that surprise us. A type of player, a late round pick this past year was Devon. I still want to say A-Chain. That's how people pronounce his name in college. Devon A-Chan for the Dolphins. Late round pick and already a star. That guy is amazing. One of the fastest players in the NFL, but was a surprise. And so if you find players like that who will be surprises, then you're able to, harvest their talent on the Albuquerque Rattlesnakes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Moving on to wide receiver. I don't, sure there's overpaid veterans. I feel like where we are now, wide receivers aren't as overpaid as, some people are paid an insane amount of money.
Yeah.
You don't find Daniel Jones type players or Russell Wilson type players in the wide receiver department.
No.
Because generally, obviously wide receivers, there's a big gap between the Justin Jefferson, the CeeDee Lamb, and the, number one players on even worse teams. Like, Terry McLaurin's a great wide receiver, but he's not Justin Jefferson. He's not CeeDee Lamb. And sure, some of that's quarterback play, but there's a bigger gap, and it's easier to see that and give people a contract that represents that. So I don't think there's as many overpaid veteran wide receivers in the NFL. But if you look at deep groups, I think this was earlier this episode. This may have been before you were on air. I mentioned the Texans.
Yeah.
Deep wide receiver group. Mentioned the Titans. They have Traylon Burks, former first round pick, hasn't really proved himself, but has a lot of talent. What other teams or guys jump out at you?
I think just as a general, like for an expansion team, I think you want at least one, whether it's an overpaid veteran or just someone that, like a D-Hop. I think you want one. I think you want a veteran. You want an OBJ. You want a D-Hop. You want a, there was a player I compared to OBJ, I think maybe in the first episode. But you want a veteran. Michael Thomas. Yeah, you want someone like that who, might not get protected because they're not the number one. They're not even the number two, but they can help develop younger receivers, and they're kind of a name that's scary.
Yes.
Like we said with OBJ in that first episode. He's not who he used to be, but when you line up against him, you're like, okay, I am lined up against Odell. Like, this is, like, it's a scary name. It's an intimidation factor. So,
there's a highlight waiting to be made against you.
Yeah. Against, oh, yeah.
Against
if you're the DB, you're about to get clipped. You're going to end up on an Instagram reel with OBJ just cooking you, right? And so there's just a fear factor. So I think you need that. I think you definitely look at the Texans. You look at the two games where is either Nico Collins or Tank Dell. One of the receivers was not like a really bad injury, but he was out for a couple games. It was Nico Collins. I think he was out for 2 games. Yeah. And Noah Brown.
Several of them were out.
Yeah. And then Tank Dell was out for the whole last half of the season. And Noah Brown was amazing. I mean, he played a game. I added him on fantasy, benched him. He did really good. And then I started him the next game, and that was when Nico Collins came back, and he didn't ever do good after that. Yeah. So big brain Baden. But the point being, like, that is and he's a young guy. Get him. Get
John Mechie.
Yeah, just they have a really, really deep receiver room, and they're all quality receivers. John Mechie isn't Stephon Diggs or Nico Collins, but if you get him on another team, then he does bump up to wide receiver 2. Wide receiver, 2. If you look at, I guess the Bears are, I think they're doing it on purpose. They're building up a new team, but they have Keenan Allen, DJ Moore,
yes. Moore, and Rome Odunze.
Yeah, so if you look at whoever their number 4 or 5 is, there's options there. They have a really deep room. The Bills. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, you're talking about the Bills. Someone who is now on the Bills, who I think is a type of player that an expansion team would draft, is Chase Claypool, who had a 4-touchdown game with the Steelers, hasn't done much at all since then, but is a freak athlete, 6'4", runs a 4.4 40.
I didn't know he was on the Bills. That's good for him.
Ironically, the Bills give him number 14. It just feels very disrespectful to Stephon Diggs.
Yeah.
But players like him who if they find the magic, can be an insane wide receiver.
Yeah.
But just haven't proven themselves, so I don't think he's a player the Bills would protect.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm glad you brought that up. That wasn't even in my mind. I think that's it for me, receiver-wise.
Yeah. Once we get past quarterbacks, like I said, it's hard to pick specific names. Although I'm going to prove myself wrong right here. We're talking about tight ends. A tight end that comes to mind as an overpaid veteran is Darren Waller. You traded a lot for Darren Waller, and he has not proved himself.
No, not a good season last.
I don't know
season.
What it is with players like that who seem like they're really good in a certain team. Maybe it's just he and Derek Carr. I wouldn't have thought of Darren Waller and Derek Carr.
Yeah.
Wow, that was confusing.
You know what it is? It's because he went from a really intimidating tight end number to number like 8 or whatever. It's because he got a single digit number on his uniform, or maybe he's like a teen, like a 12 or something.
Yeah, I think it's 12. That's a very strange.
He went
tight
from
end number.
83 or 84 to 12. So if you're wondering why he didn't have a good season, that's why, and I'll stand by that.
Good point. I mean, I'm sure that is a part of it psychologically.
But
yeah, I think the Giants would be very willing to part with Darren Waller and his $17 million salary.
Yes. Yeah, especially after last season. And he's coming off injury too. Not bad, but he played the last couple games. But so he's not someone that you're looking into the future like we can develop this guy. He's older, he's coming off injury, he hasn't proven himself.
Yeah.
But if you're a new team, that's a good option for a tight end. That's someone you can work with.
Yeah. And it's hard to think of deep tight end rooms because really you have a starter who gets targets. And sometimes you have backups who do well. I mean, you look at the Ravens, whenever Mark Andrews is out, Isaiah Likely fills in very well for him. And so I think tight end is a position that you keep to, especially if you're the Ravens and trying to run the ball like you do. But the third tight end is really on the verge. And so if there's a third tight end who does really well, I mean, I think the Cowboys haven't done this much recently, but in the past they've had several very good tight ends. I mean, they had Dalton Schultz, then they had Jake Ferguson, who is doing what he's doing now.
Yeah.
And then they have several other tight ends under him who fill in very well as, Peyton Hendershot is one of them that non-Cowboys fans probably don't know his name, but he fills in very well when needed.
Yeah, and you look at different teams. You look at players that, like, just thinking tight end. I think if I'm the Texans, I'm probably protecting this player. But you look at, is it Noah Beck? They're fullback. He might not have the size, but you can probably use him at tight end or at a bigger receiver, so you can, if there's a team that doesn't protect that fullback, because that's not if you are thinking about protecting players, unless you have a Kyle Juszczyk, you're not looking at the fullback as a protected player, And so if you get a guy like that, maybe you do keep him at fullback, but hey, maybe you move him at tight end. Maybe he plays a little almost like a receiver, like a big receiver, which is at tight end. So yeah, I'll just stay with that. So you can look at those positions that and you see that all the time in the transition from college to the NFL, or from obviously high school to college. It's different, but so why not see that in an expansion thing where you're like, okay, we need this position and you can do this. So yeah, you're a fullback. Guess what? Now you're a tight end. You're a corner. Okay, well, we have our defense filled. We need you to play receiver. And I think that's another opportunity that you could see with expansion teams, especially only having the bottom 5. You might have to make do a little bit. You might have to move people around. So that's kind of, I was just thinking about for the tight ends, I was thinking about different teams that have someone like that. And I just thought about, I was thinking about Beck for the Texans, who's not a tight end, but he gets a lot of receptions. He has size. It's just something you can look at, changing around some positions and stuff. You get Micah Parsons. Put that boy at tight end.
I mean, if there was an athlete like him who wasn't a great edge rusher, you'd move him to tight end.
Yeah.
He would be a very good tight
With
end.
his size and speed. Yeah, so you don't know. I guess you do know. I don't know. But there's a lot of opportunities.
There's a lot of unknown and things like this. I don't know why you just went blank there.
Well, I didn't know if you were looking something up or something.
I'm looking at tight end depth charts.
So we can be a little bit more educated on
one
this.
That jumps out to me a little, the Chargers have a lot of tight ends who've been in situations where they get a lot of targets. Will Dissly had been a number 2 on the Seahawks for a while. Hayden Hurst has been a number 1 for a long time.
Yeah.
Donald Parham, former XFL player for the Dallas Renegades, actually, in 2020. But has filled in as a number 2, number 2, 1.5, sometimes a number 1 on the Chargers. And then Stone Smart, I haven't seen much of his plays, but he's had some touchdowns on the Chargers.
Yeah, so that's a deep, and they just lost Gerald Everett, right? Not lost, but traded away, or did they cut him? I don't know.
He's not on their team anymore. I don't remember how.
I think it was a trade. I think he went somewhere else.
Okay,
but so that would have been 5 tight ends. So that's a really deep room. So you're not protecting all 4 of those guys.
No.
And I mean that's another like Gerald Everett. He's not just he's a big star, but also he's a good number 1. And so if he's being traded to a team or gets signed, I don't know if he's a free agent in your expansion team, great. Yes. That's a good option. And if not, if he's a number 2 somewhere, that might not be someone who's protected. Yeah.
Yeah, the Cowboys tight end room is the other one that strikes me as deep. Jake Ferguson, who is a top 10 tight end right now in the league, in my opinion. Luke Schoonmaker, who was a second-round pick a couple years ago.
Okay.
And fills in well. And Peyton Hendershot, who fills in very well when he's needed, is still in number 3. And so the Cowboys do use 3 tight ends a good bit. I feel like they're more of a spread offense, though.
Yeah.
And so Peyton Hendershot would be an available player who could cement himself as maybe even a lower-end number 1 wide receiver.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's it for me on the tight end route. Anything for you?
No, I think I'm good. There.
Obviously, those are the skill positions. If we're looking at, I don't know what else there is really to look at for. Let me pull up an old article of 2024 NFL free agents. And so we can just see who would have been available, who would have been the type of player they could have gotten.
I made a list before that first.
Okay.
Thing.
I have
not all of them, but some big names.
I have the NFL top 100 right here.
Oh, perfect.
Or top 101 actually.
Good. I just see Stephon Gilmore right there.
Yeah, and he's still available.
Yeah, he's still available. Available. It doesn't matter. Yeah, so that's. We were saying we don't know defenders. It's a little different, but that's a good. That's at least a decent pickup. Calais Campbell.
Yes,
has he been picked up?
Just looking at him, he has not been picked up
because that's a great addition if you're making a new team.
He is a perfect expansion team player because he. Literally the NFL description right here is if there was a next gen stat combining height, versatility, longevity, leadership, and low octave range. All right, well, that's a bonus there if you're trying to make a barbershop quartet with your defensive line. But yeah, longevity, leadership, those are, I think, 2 great qualities for players on an expansion team.
Here's
Ryan Tannehill.
Okay, you know what? We're our brains are connected. Just kidding. We're probably reading. I'm sure what I wrote down is from the same list you're looking at right now. But yeah, quarterbacks, Ryan Tannehill. That's at least a good veteran option. And I think it's hard looking at Ryan Tannehill because the last season of his, not career, but time with the Titans, they really developed into a Derrick Henry team, a running team. So, he definitely didn't have the best season or two seasons. But if you put him leading a new team for at least a year, when you're getting running, you don't know, and if it's a more pass heavy team, we could see something different because he was, if you talk about a run-heavy team, you look at the Titans last year, or not last season, but when Ryan Tannehill was starting. So you could see something good out of him if you pick him up. And
I agree.
I still don't know if Michael Thomas has been
he still has not been anywhere. Signed.
So like I was saying, veteran QB room or veteran QB, that's not bad.
Yeah. If you're looking at free agents like before, that are off the market now, but that were free agents to start the season, obviously you got Kirk Cousins. That would have been a home run hit for even though he's coming off injury. I'm sure he'll be better. I would hope he'll be better. I would imagine he would be. Tyron Smith, man, if you want to anchor your team, you probably need depth behind him. But starting your left tackle with Tyron Smith would be crazy. Saquon Barkley was a free agent. And a guy like Calvin Ridley, he was available and has put up some good stats still.
Gabe Davis,
exactly.
Receiver. He's Jacksonville now, I think, but he is a great 1.5 too.
Yes.
And if with a new team, when you don't have a Stephon Diggs, he could be a decent one. Yeah. I mean, obviously Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs is on.
He's on the Packers now.
Packers now. So okay.
And so a quarterback who's available before is Jacoby Brissett, who's obviously now on the Patriots. But if he's doing the same thing, I mean, the Patriots signed him to an $8 million deal. I don't think cap space would be an issue for an expansion team, but a Jacoby Brissett type quarterback who has good film, has good stats, and maybe you draft a quarterback with, that sounds so weird, an expansion team drafting someone.
Yeah.
Like, imagine growing up and like, I'm going to play for this team, and then you play for a new team.
That didn't even exist when you were a kid. That would be crazy.
But I think that's a smart type of move for a player like him. Those are the main things on my mind. Anything else?
No, I mean, just looking at this list, a lot of receivers were free agents, but which would be perfect for, you got Marquise Brown, Gabe Davis, Calvin Ridley, Mike Williams. Where's Mike Williams?
He's on the Jets now.
The Jets. I literally wrote that down. I don't know why I asked.
I just know because I looked it up like 2 days ago.
But yeah, I mean, and the thing is, people like someone like, are you just talking about Jacoby Brissett? He's probably not going to be protected. If they do it the same way, the Patriots, $8 million contract, just signed him. He hasn't proved himself because he hasn't played yet. So say it's not. We only have a couple. 4 or 5 months before season's gonna start rolling. 5 months?
Only
August.
I don't know.
It doesn't really matter.
I don't know when we're gonna release this episode.
Yeah,
so.
And obviously there's not gonna be expansion in there, but just theoretically, if we learned that today there's gonna be expansion. He hasn't played yet. They're not gonna protect him, so a quarterback like a Jacoby Brissett would be probably perfect.
Yeah. Other quarterbacks who are free agents: Jameis Winston, Tyrod Taylor.
Tyrod Taylor. I like Tyrod Taylor. That'd be a good one.
Both of those guys can be a good bridge quarterback, or they can start too.
Yeah.
Both those guys have started for quality teams in the past. Another veteran, Bobby Wagner, signed with the Commanders now, but he would be a perfect anchor for your defense.
Yeah.
For help some of the younger guys, people who haven't got as many opportunities. A guy who maybe some of them can play better than he can, but can really teach people how you play the game.
Chase Young.
I don't remember where he is now.
Saints.
At Saints. Yes.
Yeah, Saints.
But yeah, he's the type of player that, like a Chase Claypool, has a lot of upside.
Yeah, very dynamic.
That pretty much covers it for me. Anything else for you?
That is it for me.
All right. Thanks for listening to the Nice Catch podcast.
If you love football, continue to join us each episode for our football news and analysis.
This is the Nice Catch podcast.